These are the first 5 big signs that no contact is working. The first is that you're not chasing anymore and they notice. You are no longer feeding their emotional safety net, and this is due to them having this expectation that you essentially were going to be the one that breaks no contact. And when you don't do that, that safety net is no longer there, and they become very concerned because they don't know how things are going to end up. They don't know whether or not you are ever going to come back to them, or you might just simply be moving on. And this causes them to essentially start to think about things and wonder what exactly is going to happen, which scares them because there's no real evidence as to which way you are going to go because they're left in the dark. They don't have that connection to you, they don't have the availability to reach out to you. So this tends to be where they start to feel some anxiety and will start to kind of wonder what should they do next. Should they reach out to you, or should they just let things play out and kind of play this game of chicken and wait for you to still make that first move? But either way, this causes them to make them feel uncomfortable and wanting to know exactly what's going on to make sure that they're not fully just losing you. Essentially, when silence becomes consistent, their mind starts to race and starts to think of all these different scenarios, which actually leads them to taking things more seriously and is where you'll start to see them make actions towards trying to work things out again. The second thing is that they begin watching you from a distance. They may watch your stories on social media, or maybe like old posts that you have, or even just randomly texting you with some vague kind of response that they know is not really leading to something, but hopes that maybe you'll take the bait and hopefully open up and express how you've been feeling. But that's just what they're trying to do. They're trying to test the waters to see where you're at. It's a subtle way of them trying to see where your intentions are, and they're hoping that you are going to essentially open up and express how maybe you've been just working on yourself and just thinking about things, and there's still a chance that the both of you can try to work things out. And if you respond in a certain way or respond too quickly, this will cause them to feel comfortable again with going no contact and not really doing anything about it or taking it seriously, because they feel like you are essentially again at some point in time going to be the one that's going to make the first move and just resume as if nothing has happened. But this essentially is where you want to stay consistent and to continue to make sure that you are not responding. And I know that that sounds mean, but at the end of the day, this person needs to feel the consequences of them not engaging with you while you were in the relationship to work things out. And this tends to get them to kind of take a step back and realize things and see how they played a role in why things didn't work out. Because up until this point, there's a high chance that they're believing that it's all on you and that they didn't do anything. But there's a really fascinating thing that happens when you go no contact, where they start to realize that it's really not just on you and it's on them as well, which we've all known that up until this point, but they haven't realized it until this moment, because all those distractions and things that they're telling themselves, they no longer work at this stage. And that's when you are able to not respond to them. This is what tends to happen, because now combined with this anxiety of you essentially initially going no contact and not responding when they typically would expect you to, they're now realizing that you're not even responding to them. And that's when they start to really take things more seriously and start to reflect and understand how they're the ones that essentially was playing a big role in why this didn't work out. And they start to maybe even attempt to even further try to see if there's a way that they can work things out with you in a more direct way. The third thing is that you start to feel emotionally detached. You're no longer anxiously checking your phone or over analyzing things. You basically are starting to feel the effects of completely moving on and being detached from them, where you're no longer having this anxiety or urge to need to try to figure things out and try to get this person to see what you're trying to do and how you love them and care for them, because you essentially are over it at this point to a degree, right? Your nervous system is in a calming state where you feel like you've done everything everything that you possibly can because you have, and this person simply just is not responding the way that you would expect them to. And that's your mind and body really coming to that conclusion that you did everything. There's nothing more that you can do, and this is entirely on this person because they're not giving you any type of effort whatsoever. And you can only go so long of doing that before you will just get to this point where you're done. You no longer have this urge or want to essentially try to work things out with someone who's not giving any type of effort. And it only makes sense why you feel that way, because you can only go so long with continuing to put in all of this effort without getting little to nothing back in return from them. So essentially, when you no longer need them, your power starts to return back to you, which you've always had available to you, but there's this facade that you've believed in yourself that they have this power over you. But once you start to realize these things, you start to see things for what they are, that's when that power will inevitably return back to you. Or, and what I like to say, you are recognizing that power again within you and not believing all of these different things that you're telling yourself that was diminishing it while you were in the relationship with them. The fourth thing is that their new connection doesn't feel the same. They realize that new people don't meet the depth that you offered them. And this happens very quickly, but they tend to distract themselves with the newness of the relationship and kind of thinking that, oh, things will just kind of work themselves out to that point. But it gets to a point where they start to realize that this is not going to happen because you are one of one. They're not going to be able to exactly replicate you in another person, and there's a very good chance that you were the perfect person for them, right? You were somebody who was willing to do whatever it takes to try to make this relationship work. You were loving, you were caring and understanding, and you just essentially were exactly what they wanted, but they took you for granted because they got too comfortable with this and you doing everything for them, that they didn't realize that they could very much be losing the best thing that could ever happen, which is you. So when they try to go and find you in other people and try to see if they can replicate it and they fail, that's when they start to really get worried because they're like, wait, what am I going to do? Like, this person could be moved on and I'm not going to get them back, and I'm not going to get the same feeling and things that I'm expecting in the relationship with somebody else, because every relationship is going to naturally be new, right? That's how it is. Just like we have different people with different personalities, every relationship falls the same way. So this is essentially where they start to realize the magnitude of losing someone like you, and it starts to really hit them because, again, they weren't expecting this. They really believe that they could find you in somebody else because this is a way of them trying to distract themselves from having to feel those emotions about losing someone like you. But at the end of the day, they're going to have to confront those feelings and emotions and the realization that they're not going to be able to exactly replicate you in another person. And the fifth and most important stage that proves that no contact is actually working for you is that you stop focus on what they're doing. Your attention is now on your growth and not their breadcrumbs. You are not affected by them essentially reaching out to you, trying to do these subtle things that you know that they're doing to try to reel you back in. And on top of that, you are also realizing all of the different areas that they played in as why this relationship didn't work. Because a lot of the times when you're in the relationship, when you're in this mindset of trying to work things out, you're blinded to the reality of how things were. So you tend to blame yourself a lot more than you do the other person, because typically in any breakup, there's always both sides that played a role in why things couldn't work out. Yes, one side may play a bigger role than the other, but there's always going to be something that the other person was not doing or was doing that caused the relationship to not work out. But in this moment, when you are in the thick of it, you're not seeing that, and you're just focusing on all of the things that you did wrong and why you essentially didn't work out. And on top of that, you're taking on all of their explanations as far as why they're telling you that things didn't work out because of things that you did, but in actuality aren't really what's going on. want. But in this moment, this is where you start to realize this, and you start to see things for what they are, and you start to also understand how this relationship is probably not what you want. You've put so much effort into just trying to keep it afloat, and it's exhausting. You want a relationship that for the most part feels like it's naturally flowing. Doesn't mean that you guys aren't going to hit any hiccups or obstacles, because that's going to happen no matter what relationship that you're in. But for the most part, the both of you are willing to do what it takes to work through them, because you love each other and you both genuinely want to be in the relationship and contribute to the success of a healthy relationship. But in this relationship, it's probably very toxic, and this is where you start to realize that and understand it and begin to rebuild yourself and build those boundaries naturally as well, so that you know what you want in another relationship, but what you're also not going to tolerate if it does come up. And this is a very, very important aspect of no contact, because that's what no contact is about. Everything else is secondary, right? This person realizing this thing or maybe reaching out to you, all those things that happen from their perspective, that's a secondary potential side effect of you going no contact. But the main purpose of no contact and what it's always meant for is for you, because that's where you get the space away from this person to really see things for what they are and understand what is the next best step for you. And this is the most important thing that I hope you can take away from this entire video, because I know that there's a lot of different books or videos or people trying to convince you that no contact is the fail-proof way of trying to get someone back, and it's not. It's a very good way to try to, because again, all of those different things that I've mentioned in this video, but at the end of the day, you can't control how somebody's going to respond to these things. They could just simply feel like whatever and move on, and it sucks to hear that, but at the end of the day, that's a reality, because we all are our own able-bodied humans and we make our own decision. That's what free will is. So just like you are able to make decisions for yourself and gain your power back, they're able to do the same for them. And whether or not that's right or wrong for all of the effort and love that you've given to them, that doesn't really matter. And I know that it's hard to hear that, but it really doesn't, because they could just simply take it for granted and move on. And what you can do in that moment is understand that this person did not value you for whatever reason that they have. And this is a lesson for you to understand what you do and don't want in your next relationship. And now you can work towards fully focusing on yourself and continue to heal from this relationship. And when you're ready, you will find somebody else who will be someone who wants to actually be in the relationship with you and show you the love that you have wanted. But it first starts with you continuing to go no contact and prioritizing yourself. I hope that you did enjoy today's video. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.